guys, I'm Zach, the Value Commander.
And I am Bronson, the Budget Commander.
And we are the Bargain Bin Commanders. So today, we are looking at Anje Falkenrath. Now, this commander is all about madness, guys.
So pretty much what Anje Falkenrath is designed to do is that whenever you tap her, you get to do, in Magic terms, looting. You get to discard a card, then draw a card on top of it. But with Anje, if you discard a card that has madness, you get to untap her. Now, having a twiddle stick built into your cards is going to be so much value.
Exactly. And not only that, but it also allows to dig through your deck very quickly. And, madness, as we all know, anyone who's played any kind of Magic, madness is meant to get things out for cheap. We're looking at, some 3 or 4 drops, getting them out for 1, some 2 drops, getting them out for even 0 in this deck that we're going to go through here in a minute. We're going to look at this deck under the same conditions as we do every other deck on this channel. Okay, guys?
Yep, we're going to be looking at it, how it performs in the early game, the mid game, and the late game.
We're also going to see how it does with any kind of recovery and what it's going to do after those board wipes, or what it's going to do to try and finish out that game.
Exactly. We're also going to be looking at its levels of control, its levels of aggression, and ultimately how it wins the game.
Yes. So, guys, if you like what we're seeing today, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and ring that bell to make sure we're all drawing cards.
And on top of that, guys, we just got our Patreon up and going. So if you do want to help us out, go to our Patreon. Anything helps. It helps us keep the lights on. It also helps us bring more content to viewers just like you.
And we will post the link to our Patreon down here in the description below. So without further ado, guys, we will see you in the bargain bin.
All right, gentlemen. I want you to repeat after me, just how I do it. Ready?
Alright, guys, welcome to the bargain bin. Like we said, today we're looking at Anje Falkenrath. This is a Rakdos 1 white black red commander with haste, and it has tap, discard a card, draw a card, and whenever you discard a card and it has madness, untap Anje Falkenrath. Like Bronson was saying, this is going to be a really good way to loot through your deck.
It's a fantastic draw engine to have in any madness deck. Now, the pool for madness cards is fairly limited from what I know, but I seem to remember you making this deck very functional.
Oh yeah, this deck is very, very madness heavy. I have not quite all of the madness cards, but I have just about all of the black and red madness cards available for this deck. I have them, and well, it definitely does some work. I'm not going to say that you're going to win all the time with this deck. Actually, most of the time, as we've seen, it's actually so competitive that you're being taken out first.
Which is a problem with madness, because there is so much hate generated with those madness cards that people are like, well, that one needs to die now.
Exactly. So, just like every deck, we look at the land base that we have in this deck, guys, okay? So, once again, guys, just like every deck, we are going to look at what fuels the deck and looking at the mana cost, okay? So in this deck, we are running 13 mountains, okay? So a little less than half of our land base, which our land base is at 34, is going to be mountains, guys, okay? Then we're running 14 swamps. Just one more swamp, because this deck is fairly even on its color splicing, just a little bit more black in it than red. So we're running 14 swamps. Then, just like every deck that we've shown so far, we are running Command Tower, because Command Tower is a staple in any kind of multicolored deck. It's really a necessary card if you're going to be running multicolored decks. Having a land that comes in untapped, that's going to tap for any color that you're able to run in this deck is just all the value in the world.
It is, especially, it's the commander staple.
Yes, it is.
If you're running anything that is multicolored and you're not running Command Tower, you need to go to your local LGS and get a copy of Command Tower.
You can pick yourself up more than just one copy, guys. You can probably pick up 2 or 3 of them for around $2. They're really cheap. They're really good cards to have. So I can't stress that enough. Now, the next cards that we have, we're looking at 2 lands that do a lot of work and are very synergetic in this deck. They have so much value in it. One is Legendary Land Grier Reach Sanitarium. It's going to tap to add a waste mana or a colorless. But for 2 mana and tapping this land, each player draws a card and then discards a card. So that's a loot effect for everyone on the table. And, everyone's going to like that. The next one is Rick's Mahdi Dungeon Palace. And once again, going to tap to add colorless. And for 3, each player discards a card. You can activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So that is going to be really good in any kind of rack decks, any kind of decks that are fueled by people discarding or get rid of their hands. Once again, in this deck, it's going to add a lot of value because this deck is run off of getting rid of things, but then also making players get rid of things out of their deck also. So the next cards we're looking at are our dual lands, guys. So we're looking at, once again, Cinder Barons, which we saw in Child of Alara, as well as Rakdos Guildgate. They're just going to come in tapped and tap for either of those 2 colors, black or red.
So you do own a copy of Rakdos Guildgate.
Wouldn't you know it, it actually came in the pre-built version of this deck when I got it.
Wow. So this is an upgraded recon. It's still within bargain bin criteria?
Yes, it is. Would you believe me if I told you that I bought this for only about $13 and I upgraded it and it's still only around 20-something?
That is spectacular.
Yes, it is. 20 to 30 bucks for this deck, guys. Keep that in mind once again as we go through this video. So the next one we have is the one that's going to come in and gain us life, Akam Refuge. And last but not least, we have Rakdos Carnarium, which is going to come in tapped and bounce one of those lands back to our hand. So guys, being able to bounce lands, once again, these are so valuable.
It's a really good thing about Rakdos Carnarium being able to bounce a land back to your hand is it does tap for 2 mana. So you're not turns behind everybody else, and you can play another land. So for people running those landfall decks, especially landfall decks, you're going to be able to get even more value out of playing the Carnarium cards.
Yes, you are. So guys, the next things that we're going to be looking at are the Planeswalkers in this deck. You heard it right. These are the first Planeswalkers that we're running in that we're showing so far. So right now we're looking at the Planeswalkers in this deck. Like I said just a second ago, the first Planeswalkers that we're showing on this channel are in this deck. And we have 3 of them in here, okay? So we have Angrath the Flame Chained, which is the Rakdos Planeswalker 5-drop. And it has the +1 ability of each opponent discards a card and then loses 2 life. -3 ability of gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. It gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Next end step if it has a converted mana cost of 3 or less. And then for -8, its ultimate ability is each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. So with the number of sack outlets and stuff we have in this deck, this is definitely going to add one of those to be able to make people sack out their hand and then get value off of people having stuff in graveyards, guys. And this one starts out with a 4 on its loyalty. So even at the -3, it's still going to stay alive and be able to do some pretty mean stuff right out the gate.
It's also a fantastic card because it's going to take away your opponent's card advantage.
Yes, it is. So the next card is Obnixilis the Hate Twisted, one of the mini Planeswalkers, I guess you could say, because all it has is a minus ability as far as the loyalty goes. And it is a 5-drop, legendary Planeswalker, which actually all Planeswalkers are now legendary under the new ruling, I guess. And whenever an opponent draws a card, Obnixilis the Hate Twisted deals 1 damage to that player. And its -2 ability is destroy target creature. Its controller draws 2 cards.
Which is fantastic. Especially if you have that with one of the demon cards that came out with in I think it was M20, that every time you draw a card, every time you take a damage, you draw a card. You could give that to an opponent with Obnixilis and just loop it infinitely.
Yes, you could, and that is gives so much value. Once again, it's kind of like the very mean loop that we all know about in any kind of rack 8 deck that I'm sure we'll probably go over at some point in this channel.
Oh yes, I actually have a mono black rack deck that I'm going to be showing on here.
And that will be so much fun to look at. So the last Planeswalker we have, guys, is Ob Nixilis Reignited. Now, Bronson, this is probably your least favorite Planeswalker in this deck.
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with all Ob Nixilis cards. First off, I think they're really awesome if I'm playing them. I literally hate everyone else who plays them.
And I understand that. Now, the +1 ability of Ob Nixilis is you draw a card and you lose a life. So giving that card advantage to yourself and using that Phyrexian mana kind of just to draw a card is going to be some value. Its -3 is destroy target creature. And then -8, which is the one that you hate, especially when you're playing some of your other decks, is whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. And it gives them that emblem.
That emblem is what I hate the most because Ob Nixilis Reunited, people forget about the emblem ability. And the next thing you know, you hear that that player sitting at the table go, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and -8 Reignited. And you go, wait a minute, when did that hit alt? And so then they emblem that one problem player and then proceed to draw their deck.
Exactly. So this is going to be really good with those decks that really are fueled around drawing their decks to either find their win con or even win by drawing into an empty deck, something like that. This is going to actually deal with some of those players because they're going to be losing life every time they draw a card and they get that emblem from then on, no matter, even when this, card gets destroyed.
And the best part about that emblem, it says whenever a player draws a card.
Exactly. So that player is going to be losing 2 life at the beginning of every single upkeep. And if they're not the only one that has a lot of draw power in their deck, that's just going to hit them like there's nothing, like no tomorrow.
Exactly. And those Ob Nixilis cards, they come out of nowhere. And if you're able to pretty much catch someone in a draw loop with any of those Ob Nixilis cards on the board, or that emblem on the board on someone, it's game.
Yes, it is. So, guys, the next ones we're going to look at are the artifacts in this deck. All right, so next we're looking at the artifacts in this deck. First, we have Elixir of Immortality, which is going to be really good because we're looting through our deck so fast. This is a 1-drop artifact that's going to come in, and for 2 and tap, you're going to gain 5 life, and then you're going to shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into their owner's library.
Which is fantastic to be able to keep your engines moving. And Elixir of Immortality is a wonderful card. Other cards to be looking for similar effects to Elixir of Immortality, Feldon's Cane. Also an extremely cheap card, and pretty much you put it out there for 1, and then you tap it, and you shuffle your graveyard back into your library.
Exactly. The biggest difference between this and Feldon's Cane is for 1 more mana, you're gaining that 5 life.
And also Feldon's Cane exiles itself when used.
Exactly. Whereas this is shuffling itself in, so you can do it again. So, guys, next we have Swiftfoot Boots, which is a very good card for 2-drop, and equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and it only costs 1 to equip.
And it's a commander staple. Swiftfoot Boots, if you're running a creature deck, is extremely important. It is how your opponents tend to win with that turn 5 Blightsteel Colossus is by slapping some Swiftfoot Boots on it.
Yes, it is. So up next is Key to the City. Once again, a 2-drop, and it's going to have tap, discard a card. Up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn, and whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2, and if you do, draw a card. So a lot of times I do this kind of as a trick to kind of keep up on my card advantage, to have more cards in hand, because I am discarding a lot of cards in this deck. But getting, the advantage of being able to not a creature not be blocked is fantastic. Okay, guys?
Well, unblockable is just super powerful. There are literal decks around unblockable creatures.
Yes, there are. And guys, if you want to, watch one of us build a deck built around unblockable, let us know down in the comments. Okay. So next we have a mana rock in the form of Rakdos Locket. I almost said that backwards. For a 3-drop, and it's going to add a black or red. And then for a 4, you're going to be able to tap and sacrifice it and draw 2 cards.
Mana rocks and commander. Who'd have thought it?
Who'd have thought? And just like we were saying in the main, or just like we were just saying, mana rocks once again, mana geode, a 3-drop. And when it enters battlefield, you're going to scry 1, which is going to give you a little bit of top deck advantage, and you're going to add 1 mana of any color.
Which is fantastic because you get to scry.
Exactly. So, guys, that is artifacts in this deck. Next up, we're looking at enchantments. All right, guys. So right now we are looking at enchantments. First up, we have Prophetic Ravings. This is a 1-drop red, and it's going to be an aura that's going to enchant a creature. An enchanted creature has the same effect as Anya, being able to tap and discard a card and then draw a card.
It's going to be fantastic. As a creature haste, you can draw a card, discard a card. The only downside is it doesn't untap when you discard madness.
Unfortunately, that is the downside, but there are some creatures that benefit from being tapped that, we'll go into here in just a little bit.
Fantastic.
Next up, we have Senseless Rage, a 2-drop aura, which gives enchanted creature +2/+2, and it does have a madness trigger of madness cost of 2 as well, so getting that madness trigger to be able to untap on you.
Also, with that madness, you can flash it onto the field, allowing you to use it as a combat trick.
Yes, you can, which is an awesome thing about a lot of these. Then we have Faith of the Devoted. This is a 3-drop that's going to really pay for itself whenever you're going through and discarding a card or cycling anything. You may pay 1, and if you do, each opponent's going to lose 2 life and you're going to gain 2 life. So you're going to get a lot of value being able to consistently tap and untap on you. And if you have the extra mana, why not drop that 1 or 2, whenever you're doing that, to make sure you're paying people for 2 to 4 life. Then, whenever you're gaining that life from Faith of the Devoted, why not take advantage of that from Sanguine Bond, being able to, target opponent's going to lose that much life. So you're going to gain that 2 life from Faith of the Devoted, and then each opponent's going to lose that life. So effectively, you're looking at opponents taking 4 life each time that you're tapping on you to discard a card.
You can effectively machine gun one opponent down at a time while utilizing that ability.
Yes, you can, and that is really a big deal. Unfortunately, right now we don't have the other half of this piece, Bronson, which is Exquisite Blood, which we have the card, but for the price of the deck, I wanted to show this deck as is on the cheapest deck that we have, and being able to show exactly what it can do as is without it.
Exquisite Blood is a $30 card, so even with that, the deck can still be in budget format with it. But we're looking at Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. One, it's an extremely cheesy play, and if you want to keep friends at the table, that combo is going to make sure you lose them.
Exactly. So next up, another thing that's going to make sure that you're losing friends at the table, you're going to be able to curse a player with a madness cost. It's a 6-drop curse that says whenever enchanted player draws a card, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. And it's going to have a madness trigger of 4. So if you have anybody that's about to go into a lot of draw triggers, say they have Green Sun Zenith or anything like that, or not Green Sun Zenith.
Maybe you got that one guy that's about to do a Windfall.
Yes.
And right as he casts Windfall, you see him flash out Notion Thief. You can go ahead and in response tap Anya, hit him with that curse, watch him kill himself.
Exactly. And that is the big thing, being able to, at instant speed, be able to do that. But if you're playing against that person that is going to just be drawing a lot of cards throughout the game, why not just drop this on them on turn 4?
Yeah, it's a very easy way to make sure that you slow down that draw player.
Exactly. So, guys, next up, we're going to be looking at the instants in this deck. All right, guys, so looking at our instants, we have Harvest Pyre, which is a 2-drop, and as an additional cost to cast Harvest Pyre, exile X cards from your graveyard, and Harvest Pyre deals X damage to target creature.
Now, because you're dumping a lot of stuff in your graveyard, Harvest Pyre is going to have a lot of value on being able to just pretty much fireball an opponent.
Yes, it does. And not only that, but fireball that big, nasty creature. And then we have Rakdos Charm, which is the ever so loved charm that exile all cards from target player's graveyard or destroy target artifact, or each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. Depending on what the board state's looking like, guys, that is all of the charms do so much work.
They do, but I don't feel that any of them does as much work as Rakdos Charm. You're looking at a card that can pretty much play like whatever you needed to at that moment, where you can deal large amounts of damage all at once, or you can destroy that troublesome artifact that's giving you problems, or, and my favorite part is, you can play it like it's a Bajuka Bog or a Tormod's Crypt.
Exactly. And being able to really disrupt any of those recursion decks or dredge decks and being able to exile that just shuts them down, guys. And for a 2-drop instant, I love it. So the next one we're looking at is a Fiery Temper, which is a 3-drop. Fiery Temper deals 3 damage to any target, but for Madness, it's a 1-drop, guys. So you're literally looking at a lightning bolt and still getting that Madness trigger for Anja being able to refuel your hand.
Fantastic.
Now, this next one I have in here mostly just because of the laughs, and it's honestly a really good card, but there's also a possibility it could burn you, and it's Chaos Warp. For 3, the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So ultimately, that could burn you guys because they could put something even bigger or meaner on the board. But a lot of times, it is a 99 card singleton deck, and you're talking about decks that a lot of times have a lot of sorceries or instants or something like that are just going to fizzle.
You're also looking at decks that primarily in Commander, most decks are 30 to 40% mana. They're land based. So Chaos Warping someone into a forest instead of that massive freaking Hydra is fantastic. On top of that, I enjoy Chaos Warp because, one, it is a little bit of red control, and it says, if I remember correctly, it's permanent, isn't it?
Yes, target permanent.
If you got that one player that's like, hey, guess what? I'm playing Reliquary Tower and I have a huge hand and there's nothing you can do about it, you can Chaos Warp that Reliquary Tower.
Yes, you
and
can.
Force them to put something else out there. And if it's not a no maximum hand size card, guess who's getting ready to discard?
Oh yeah, and that is perfect, especially right when they just drew a bunch of cards and they're getting ready to end their turn with that 20-something card hand. Just like that, let's go ahead and mill 14 of those.
Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. You are allowing them to build their perfect hand, but a lot of times they put their win cons in there, and they had too many win cons to be able to hold in a 7-card hand, and they were having to set up for it. It's why people run Reliquary Tower, so that they can hold all of their cons all at once.
Yep, hold all their answers all at the same time. So next, we're looking at Abandon Reason, which is a 3-drop, and up to 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and first strike until end of turn, and for 2 for its Madness cost. So it's going to be a really good,
it should be a combat trick.
A really good combat trick. Thank you, Bronson. That's what I was looking at. The wording I was looking for.
And with first strike, it's phenomenal. If you got that creature that's got Gorgon's the aspect of the Gorgon on there, you're looking at being able to Madness it, give it first strike, and then boom, Death Touch on top of first strike means that big creatures, especially if they assign that really massive thing to be a blocker, and it's got first strike, now you're able to negate its first strike with your own, causing it to die from your Death Touch.
Exactly. So then up next, we're looking at Psychotic Haze, which is a 4-drop. Psychotic Haze deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. This is going to be really good to deal with those token gen decks. You just dumped a lot of tokens on the board. Let's go ahead and get rid of those. And it's a 4-drop that you're madnessing out for 2, so you're saving 2 mana off of that. And if you have Faith of the Devoted on the field, you're still saving that 1. That's a lot of value out there, guys.
Sayonara, Krenko.
That's right. So, Violent Eruption is up next. At a 4-drop, Violent Eruption deals 4 damage, divided as you choose among any number of targets, and you can Madness out there for 3. Once again, the Madness is so good. Then, last on our instance list is Dark Withering, which is a 6-drop. destroy target non-black permanent. However, and this is probably one of my favorite Madness cards, simply because for 1 black, you're being able to destroy that creature with the Madness cost.
So you're looking at an even cheaper version of Doomblade with its Madness ability.
Yes, it is. So with that one, if you get it out for the 1 rather than the 6, you're saving 5 mana, leaving yourself open not only to pay for that devoted cost, but also maybe pay for another Madness and another Anya trigger.
Which allows you to just keep steamrolling your opponents and controlling out that board. Because, believe it or not, control doesn't mean blue.
No, it doesn't. Actually, there's a lot of control in black in the form of removal, as far as creature removal. There's a lot of control in red as far as dealing damage directly. And there's a lot of control in green, as in, no, you're not dealing damage to me with those fog effects.
And some really cool things. I like red's control probably the best because it doesn't just have creature removal. In the proper red decks, you're looking at player removal.
That's exactly right. And, there are some red cards in here, like the ever so loved Fireball, which does have that player removal ability of a X cost spell, dealing that damage directly to target creature or player.
Which is fantastic.
Yes, it is. So, guys, next up, we're going to be looking at our sorcery cards, okay? All right, so now we're looking at the sorceries. First up, we have Faithless Looting, which is a 1-drop red, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and it has flashback. So, a good way to kind of go through your deck, especially early game, to be able to get those, that card advantage early on, so you can hopefully start digging through your deck with those Madness triggers.
Yes, and because you discard 2 cards at the end of his trigger, the good thing is that if you have mana open, you can discard Madness cards and then turn on and recast them.
You're exactly right, and that is part of the reason why I have it in here is because of those discard effects. Being able to just take advantage of that, especially if Anya is tapped at the time, and maybe I discarded something with Madness, Anya's going to untap even if I didn't tap her right then. So that's the really cool thing.
Yes.
Because that says whenever you discard a card with Madness, untap Anje Falkenrath. So
it doesn't say which method you had to use to discard it.
Exactly. So next we have Shamble Back. One drop black, exile target creature from a graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, and gain 2 life. That is going to be great for not necessarily recursion, but maybe exiling something out of your graveyard just to get the body on the field, or exiling that pesky player, that pesky creature out of somebody else's graveyard.
Oh yes, especially being able to hit that dredge player.
Exactly, being able to hit that dredge player, hit those graveyard recursion players, and get the value from doing so as well. Next, we have Call to Netherworld, which is a 1-drop black, return target black creature card from your graveyard to your hand. However, the really cool thing is it's got a Madness of 0. So with this, I can tap Anya, get that back onto the back, and tap Anya, play this for free, getting the trigger from Anya, and basically getting a card back from the graveyard for free.
Oh, you're looking at more card advantage.
You're exactly right. Next, we have Distemper of Blood. Or Distemper of the Blood, sorry. Target creature gets +2/+2, gains trample on sound of turn. And it's a 2-drop with a Madness cost of 1.
And because it's even though it's a sorcery with the Madness cost, you could, in combat, go ahead and tap Anje Falkenrath, discard it for a combat trick.
Once again, having the pretty much everything on here have flash and or work at instant speed because of that the Anya/Madness trigger is very, very valuable, being able to work that as a combat trick, exactly like you said. So say I have a creature, I'm going to swing it. In response to your blocks, I'm going to make it bigger and have it still do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Tormenting Voice, which is a 2-drop as an additional caster cost. Tormenting Voice, discard a card, and you're going to draw 2 cards. So it's very similar to Faithless Looting, a little bit more expensive, but you're going to be only discarding 1 card, and maybe you have that Madness trigger to be able to take off that way, and you're putting 2 cards in your hand for the price of 1.
Yeah, because if you discard Shamble Back with it, you're looking at even more value.
Now, next one is...
Call it the Netherworld, not Shamble Back.
Exactly. So the next one is basically kind of like a fireball effect in Avacyn's Judgment. It's a 2-drop with a madness of X and red. And Avacyn's Judgment deals 2 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. If this spell's madness cost was paid, it deals X damage divided as you choose to those permanents and or players instead.
It's fantastic. I love Avacyn cards. They're really, really cool and ganky. And Avacyn is out of my personal favorite set in Magic, the Indestructible block.
Oh yeah, and getting not only the madness trigger to take off, where you tap on you, draw that card, discard this, tap everything out. Then you're able to deal Lord knows how much damage, especially late game when you might be able to deal 15, 16 points of damage overhead. That could be game ending in some situations in some tables, guys.
Yeah, a little bit of player removal goes a long ways.
Yes, it does. So we also have Murderous Compulsion, which is a 2-drop, destroy target's tapped creature, and it's a madness of 2. So being able to, well, that creature just swung. Let's go ahead and get rid of that now.
Yeah. In response to you tapping that creature to swing it my way, I'm going to tap on you. I'm going to discard this card, and I'm going to obliterate your creature.
Like maybe you're playing against that green player who has Seedborn Muse out that allows them to untap at the beginning of each untapped step. Well, let's go ahead and get rid of that creature while it's tapped at instant speed because of that madness trigger.
Hey, Big Bad Galta can't do anything to you if it's in the graveyard.
You're exactly right. Next, we have Alms of the Vein. Target opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. It's got a madness cost of 1. Everyone's favorite and also least favorite card in the game, Mind Rot. Target player discards 2 cards. You're going to see that in a lot of rack decks.
Yes, and what's really good about Mind Rot is that you're eliminating your opponent's ability to answer your problems.
Or maybe you don't have Anya out. Maybe maybe Anya's been cast a couple times and you don't have the ability to have that discard effect on yourself. So why not trigger yourself with this and discard 2 of your madness triggers to be able to get those on the field?
No, you're absolutely right. And if you're holding, if you know that you're holding some of your cards like Call of the Netherworld in hand, targeting yourself with Mind Rot after Anya was destroyed, you just allow it to go to the graveyard, and then Call of the Netherworld it for free back to your hand so you can cast it without paying that commander tax.
Precisely. Next, we have Soul Salvage, a 3-drop. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is going to be really good. As you guys are starting to see, we do have a decent amount of graveyard recursion in this because we do have a lot of discard effects. And with Madness, any of those creatures that maybe we don't have the mana to pay for right now, even with its Madness cost, but maybe you're digging through your deck to find those answers, discard those creatures. They're going to go to the graveyard at the end of that Madness trigger anyways. So getting these recursions back to be able to pull them back to your hand and maybe pull those madness triggers again, or finally being able to get them on the board.
They're gone, but they're not forgotten.
Precisely. Next, we have Siphon Soul, which is a 3-drop. Siphon Soul deals 2 damage to each other player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. So this is going to be really big in those four pod games where you're going to be dealing 2 damage to each player and you're gaining 6 life. Or even better, if you're in a bigger type game like Usurper or something else where there could be 7, 8, or even 9 players sitting at the board, that's a good way to turn life totals around and have you gain a lot of life.
Exactly.
Next, we have Psychotic Episode, a 3-drop. Target player reveals his or her hand and the top card of his or her library. You choose a card revealed this way. That player puts the chosen card on the bottom of his or her library, and it's got a madness of 2. So once again, being able to get that off with the Faith of the Devoted trigger in there to maybe ping them a little bit for being able to get that madness and go ahead and getting them getting those cards going is a lot of value, guys.
You know what's even really good about that? If someone vampiric tutors a win con to the top of their deck, or they use any of those top deck tutors, and you just drop that on them real quick, like, hey, let's see what you pulled.
Let's just waste that spell, why don't you?
Yeah, get rid of that. That's not happening. No Mystic Tutors for you, blue player.
Nope. We don't like tutors here. We're looting because we don't have tutors. So I don't want you to play them either.
Exactly.
because let's see what you just demonic tutored. Because demonic tutor, pull your card to your hand. In response, I'm going to tap Anya, discard psychotic episode, cast it for 2. Let's see what you just tutored for.
You want to let demonic tutor resolve first before you do that, so that you can actually catch it.
Exactly. So you want to take over priority after demonic tutor happens.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Malevolent Whispers, which is a 4-drop. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains +2/+0 and gains haste until the end of turn. And it is a madness for 4, so you're not getting any value for casting it cheaper, but getting that madness trigger with Anya, refilling your hand, and being able to take a target creature. Maybe somebody else is playing with a maybe somebody's playing with a Nib Mizzet. Maybe you want to get that before you start tacking off on a lot of Anya triggers and going through your deck very heavily. Well, guys, that's a good way to win the game right there too.
Well, one of the really cool things about that is that commander damage works even if you get hit with your own commander. So if someone is playing that card like Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, hey, I'm going to borrow that real quick and I'll smash you in the face with your own commander.
Exactly. Or Prosh. It's huge. It's big. You just got done sacking all of those tokens to it.
And I'm going to borrow that.
I'm going to borrow that and smack you in the face with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's even really cool about it is, if I remember correctly, Prosh loses its power boost at the end of turn, right?
I believe so.
So, hey, I just got done making a really big Prosh. Cool. In response to finishing off all your Prosh triggers, I'm going to go ahead and take control of that until the end of your turn.
Exactly. That is a really big problem that a lot of players with any kind of making stronger effects are going to have a big time dealing with, because a lot of those triggers fall off at end of turn.
Exactly. So you're able to steal that creature in red, which is not as common as what one would think, and then just go, you know what? Now, whenever you end your turn, your creature goes back to being a normal size, and it's not a problem anymore.
Yep. Like those prowess triggers are really big.
They can be.
Yes, they are. Next, we have Biting Rain. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. It's a 4-drop, but you're madnessing it for 3.
And all creatures getting -2/-2 till end of turn. Go ahead and eliminate all those token generators.
Yep. Those token generators, let's go ahead and get those offline. And why not let's get rid of some of those other creatures that maybe not tokens, but they're still problems because of their effect, but they have low, power toughness.
Yeah, like maybe someone's playing Adelas.
Adelas does cause a lot of problems, and because it's not very high power, very high toughness.
It's just a 2/2.
Exactly. It's going to get rid of it.
And if they are playing Adelas, one of the really cool things is make them burn a spell to get Adelas above it, so that they don't have to worry about it.
Yep. So the next one we have is Alchemist's Greeting, which is a 5-drop. An Alchemist deals 4 damage to target creature, but you're going to be able to get it on the field for 2 because of Madness.
And fantastic creature removal. It is not very common where you see creatures come out where they are above that 4 toughness.
Not often, especially if you're able to get that out early game, turn 4, turn 5, somewhere around there. Most of the time, those creature decks are still trying to ramp up to their big creatures.
Exactly, and you're able to pop a door.
Yep. So next we have probably my favorite sorcery in this deck, and it is From Under the Floorboards.
Oh, that's a fantastic one.
Yes,
I personally
it is.
run it in a Liliana deck because zombie triggers are so much fun.
Yes, they are. And guys, I run 20 zombie tokens in this deck for this card alone, because it's going to be a 5-drop. Create the 3 tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens and gain 3 life. If this spell's madness cost was paid, instead create X of those tokens and gain X life. So why not be able to pay the same 2 black, but then an X of 13, 14, and dump a lot of creatures on the board, gain a lot of life, and just like that, you're the problem on the board because you have a big board state all of a sudden out of nowhere.
And a big life total.
And a big life total. This card has saved me, Bronson, more than a couple times from having next to no life to all of a sudden I've got 20-something life.
Which is one of my favorite cards whenever I am playing any of my blue decks to go, nah.
Exactly. So Guys, with this deck, you're going to garner a lot of hate because of Anya and because of being able to just sort through your deck and shuffle through that deck quickly. So the next one is specifically meant for that, Skullstorm. Paying 9 for it, so it's fairly big. But when you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Each opponent who can't loses half their life total, rounded up.
So you're able to take those big players that doesn't have a whole lot of creatures on the board and just completely flatten their life totals.
You could get them down to 1 or even, to sub below 10 life because of this. If they have 40 life, but then you're taking away half, say you're copying it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
You're halving it, so then it's 20, halving it again, it's 10, halving it again, it's 5 in one card. And that is so much value being able to do that for just 9 mana, guys. That's turn 9. If you manage to get this, and Anya's been on and off the field 3 or 4 times, and that's pretty much game for a lot of those cards, especially with this next one. If you're able to get that off for 9 and then turn around and fireball, deal X damage divided, evenly among any number of target creatures and or players. Pay an additional 1 for each target beyond the first. So that is such a good card. Being able to maybe drop those life totals down to next to nothing and then just finishing them off for maybe a max of like 10 on the fireball.
Yeah, if a player wraths the board the turn before it gets to you, hitting them with that Skullstorm, dropping everyone down to around 5 life, and then paying 9 mana for a fireball wins you the game.
Exactly. So next up, guys, we have Hate Mirage. This is a 4-drop sorcery, and choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. For each of those creatures, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, and exile them at the beginning of the next end step. That is going to be really big to be able to copy some of those creatures that are kind of a problem for you. Or maybe you just like the effect. Once again, like I've heard you say a couple times, Bronson, anything you can do, I can do better. So why not get some of those discard effects or discard, cards off of those rack creatures or off of those Izzet players with Niv Mizzet. Once again, being able to, get that on the board and be able to, hey, I'm about to go through my deck, and I have now Niv Mizzet Firemind and Niv Mizzet Payrun.
Which is phenomenal because then you're able to go through your madness triggers and pretty much machine gun your opponents down with them.
Exactly.
What's really cool about Firemind or Payrun is that whenever anyone casts an instant or sorcery, you get to draw a card. So even if you start to run out of a little bit of steam with your madness, you can just start casting your sorceries or your instants and start getting even more value off of it. What's really cool with that is that it still works with the madness effect too. So you could tap on you, discard a card with one of your sorceries of madness or one of your instants with madness.
Draw that card.
Draw a card off of it, cast that card, get a trigger off of Niv Mizzet, draw a card. You just dealt 2 damage with Payrun and 2 damage with Firemind. Equal.
So guys, now we're going to be looking at the creatures of this deck. Easily, probably a third of this deck are creatures. So we're gonna jump right into those. Okay. First up, we have Cryptbreaker. It's a 1-drop black zombie creature, and it's a 1/1. But for 2 and tap, discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Then you can tap 3 untapped zombies you control, draw a card, and you lose a life. So this is gonna be really good, being able to get some of those madness triggers off fairly early, before turn 1 or before turn 3. Being turn 1, you get this. Turn 2, you're able to automatically start discarding and going through your deck and putting creatures on the board. Next up, we have Corsair Sadist. It's a 2-drop with an exploit trigger. It's a 1-drop 1/3, and exploit whenever this creature enters the battlefield. You may sacrifice a creature, and when Corsair Sadist exploits a creature, target opponent loses 2 life, and you're going to gain 2 life. That one would go really good in any kind of aristocrat trigger because something died, people are losing life, you're gaining life.
It's fantastic.
Yes, it is. Next up, we have Dusk Mantle Operative. Probably one of the coolest black cards in this deck because it's a 2-drop 2/2. Can't be blocked by creatures with power of 4 or greater.
So if you Voltron that creature up, put Infect on it, and everyone's got one of those really big board states, you can just blitz them.
Exactly. Next up, we have Doomed Necromancer at 3. 3-drop 2/2, and for 1 and tap, sacrifice Doomed Necromancer, return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield.
Now that is big, putting it back on the battlefield from graveyard, because it is actually not easy to get those kind of triggers to happen.
No, it's not easy at all. So next up, we're looking at our first creature with Madness on it. Guys, having Madness on creatures is honestly kind of unfair because say you don't have anything on board, but you have open mana and people are trying to swing at you, let's get a blocker on that field so your life total is not going away at instant speed with that Madness cost. So with that, why not be able to put Stromkurt Occultist on the field at instant speed? It's a 3-drop with trample, 3-drop 3/2 with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. So, and it's got a Madness cost of 2.
Just fantastic.
And you're telling me that with this, all of my cards have Madness? I think that's just dirty.
It's maddening, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I love it. Next up, we have Blood Mad Vampire. A 3-drop, 4/1. And whenever Blood Mad Vampire deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it. And it's got a Madness cost of 2. So it's kind of like that the Johnny Pridemate, but you're dealing damage and getting that 1/1 counter.
Which is fantastic.
Yes, it is. Next up is a 3-drop Big Game Hunter. When Big Game Hunter enters the battlefield, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It can't be regenerated. It's got a Madness cost of 1, guys. So, for 1, they just dropped the big gults on the field. Let's go ahead and get rid of that at instant speed for 1 mana.
Just great.
Yes, it is. Then we have another exploit creature with Minister of Pain. When Minister of Pain exploits a creature, creatures your opponents control get -1, -1 until end of turn. That's going to be really big, once again, dealing with those token generating decks.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Dutiful Attendant for 3. When Dutiful Attendant dies, return another target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So once again, just more of that graveyard recursion. Then, guys, this next creature is in here purely for the reasons of being able to discard cards and get value off of them. We have Anger, which I'm not worried about this thing going onto the battlefield ever. This thing is going from my hand directly to the graveyard with Anje Falkenrath. As long as Anger is in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control have haste.
The last place I want to see Anger is on my battlefield.
Oh yeah, that just makes me mad when if somebody were to take over my turn and then put that on the battlefield, that just makes me mad.
Does it make you angry?
Makes me a little angry. I love the pun there, Bronson. So next we have Grave Scrabbler for 4, but has a Madness cost of 2. When Grave Scrabbler enters the battlefield, if its Madness cost was paid, you may return a target creature card from graveyard to its owner's hand. And that is any graveyard, guys. So maybe you don't have the answer, but maybe one of your opponents does. That's a really good way to politic and talk and work with your opponents and get a little bit of value with them being able to deal with something that you can't.
Which is awesome because I love playing cards that say anything you can do, I can do better.
Precisely. Next up, we have Rank Officer. Once again, this is going to be one of those token gen, putting a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. But with all of those token gen decks, guys, most of the time, you're going to be able to, most of those are 1/1s, and you're putting 2/2s on the board. Automatically, your tokens are going to be bigger than your opponents. And with its 2-drop and tap effect on Grave Scrabbler, or Rank Officer, sorry, you're going to exile a creature from your graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life.
Which is phenomenal.
Yes, it is. So it's really good getting those triggers off for things that maybe you don't mind being, whether they're in the graveyard or not. Next off, we have Bloodhall Priest, which is a 4-drop in Rakdos colors 4/4, and whenever Bloodhall Priest enters the battlefield or attacks, if you have no cards in hand, Bloodhall Priest deals 2 damage to any target, and it has a madness cost of 3. So that is in here mostly for the madness trigger, being able to get off with Anya to discard and untap Anya, and maybe put a creature on the board. And yes, it's kind of situational if I don't have a card in hand, but with these discard effects, guys, that is possible. Whenever you're doing the whenever it swings part, whenever it attacks part, it's possible not to have cards in hand. I've gone through my hand more times than not in this deck.
Which is phenomenal. And one of the really cool things about it is that, one, this card gets stupid fast.
Yes, it can.
Mm-hmm. So whenever you're going through your deck, you're discarding. I have seen more times than not when you're playing Anya that you go handless for a long period of time.
Yes, I will. I'll go handless, because with Anya, as soon as I get that first madness trigger, I can start milling through my deck quick.
Yes. So this card gets a lot of value in decks where you are literally, it's like, well, you know what? I need to play Bloodhall Priest. You don't want to tap on you for her, unfortunately, because you do have to draw that card. But if you can draw an instant, if you do that, you can in fact play that before you do the madness response.
Yes, you can. So next, guys, we're in a deck that we're discarding a lot of cards, and every now and then, if you're trying to dig through an answer, you're going to have to discard a land. So one of my favorite creatures in the entire game of Magic is going to be Scaretiller. It's a colorless 4-drop, and when Scaretiller becomes tapped, choose one. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or you can return a land card, target land card from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. So this is going to be really cool, especially if you have the enchantment that allows target creature to tap, discard a card, draw a card. Putting that on here to be able to tap it or get it tapped for the not only madness trigger possibly, but also if you miss a land trigger or you miss a land drop or you have a land in your graveyard, you have that.
And if you have that one guy at the table that's playing buddies, being able to make an agreement with him to bounce Scaretiller off of one of his creatures, you can just sit there and get value for it and wind up ultimately playing into his destruction, utilizing his own deck against him.
Yep, that is really a good point that you have there. Next up, we have Weirded Vampire. It's a 4-drop, but with madness of 3. It's a 4-drop 3/3. Doesn't do anything else, but it's a madness of 3. Getting that extra madness trigger off.
Yes, well, it's a body, a 3/3 body. In Magic, a lot of folks want everything to have an effect, but its effect is literally flash.
Its effect is flash, and I'm drawing a card.
So that's a big deal whenever you're looking at the Anje Falkenrath deck, is that if it has madness, it has flash.
Yes, it does. Next up, we're looking at Nightshade Assassin. It's a 4-drop with first strike, and when Nightshade Assassin enters the battlefield, you may reveal X black cards in your hand. If you do, target creature gets -X until end of turn, and it may be a 4-drop, but it's going to come out for 2, guys, for madness.
Which is phenomenal. I discard this card, draw a card. Oh, look at that. It's another black card. And I've noticed most of your cards, they're either black or have black in them.
Yes, they do. All right, so guys, next up, we're looking at Silumgar Butcher. This is a 5-drop with Exploit once again. And when Silumgar Butcher exploits a creature, target creature gets -3 until end of turn.
Really good for removal on those indestructible creatures if you're whenever they're out there, because -3, negative actually gets around indestructible.
That is most of the time the point of getting those negative triggers around the board. Next up, we're looking at Rakshasa Gravecaller. It's a 5-drop once again with Exploit, and whenever Rakshasa Gravecaller exploits a creature, put 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield.
Which is, yet again, really good. I've got a 1/1 out there on the field. I exploit, boom, I have more creatures.
Exactly. Next up, I know this is kind of out of order, but we have Asylum Visitor. This is a 2-drop with Madness, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, you're going to draw a card and lose a life. So that is going to be really good with a lot of the discard effects in this deck, being able to take advantage of that, kind of like a rack deck, in being able to do those.
Just yet again, phenomenal.
Yes, it is. Next up, guys, we have a 5-drop in our first flippy card of the deck. I think the only one that we have in this deck, Flying Voldarian Pariah. Sacrifice 3 other creatures, transform Voldarian Pariah, but it's going to have a madness cost of 3 black, guys. So not only are you getting that madness trigger off with being able to get this on the board, but you're also putting a flippy creature, being able to bring out Abolisher of Bloodlines, which is a big 6/5 Eldrazi vampire on the board with flying. And when this creature transforms into Abolisher of Bloodlines, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures.
Which is big for anyone running Voltron decks. Those banned hexproof decks that are usually really difficult to deal with. Abolisher of Bloodlines says, get rid of it.
Exactly, and I love that fact. I love that being able to do that. So, guys, we have a lot of madness triggers in this deck, do we not?
We do.
So, why not get even more value out of them with Archfiend of Ifnir?
Ugh.
That is your least favorite card in this deck, I believe.
I have never let it resolve after I saw it the first time.
So, Archfiend of Ifnir, whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. Guys, that is going to be a lot of problems for a lot of people. When that gets resolved and able to stay on the board, it causes problems for everyone.
Yeah, because I had actually managed to have Armandal on the field, and then you Archfiend of Ifnired it down to a 3/2.
That's kind of the point. Being able to get those indestructible creatures down to very small or even
Destroying
dead.
them altogether.
Exactly. Next up, we have Gorgon Recluse. Gorgon Recluse blocks or becomes blocked a non-black creature. Destroy that creature at the end of combat. It's basically got a death touch for non-black creatures.
Yeah.
It's a 5-drop with a madness cost of 2 black.
Which is phenomenal. And what's really cool about it is that black may be common to see in commander decks. However, yet again, those banned hexproof decks that I refer to, or even more than that, any kind of decks that are running just those Azorius wild decks, the any kind of lockdown that's got certain creatures, you can go ahead and force those blocks and cause creatures to be sacrificed or destroyed.
Exactly. So next up, we have Twisted Abomination, a 6-drop, 5/3 with Swamp Cycling for 2. But it's also going to have a 1-drop Regenerate Twisted Abomination. So this is going to be mostly in here just for that regenerate of having a creature that's just not going to go away.
And if you are running low on mana, that Swamp Cycling is going to come in handy.
Yes, it does. And guys, the very last creature in this deck, we've already seen one Archfiend, so why not get its big brother, the Madness Archfiend of Spite, the 7-drop 6/6 flying demon. Whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to Archfiend of Spite, that source's controller loses that much life unless they sacrifice that many permanents.
That's brutal.
Yes, it is. And guys, it might be a 7-drop, but you're going to get it on the board for 5 with Madness.
And that is a phenomenal card. If you've got someone that's playing aggro, hey, you know what? I know you swung at me with that really big prosh, but hey, I'm going to block with Archfiend of Spite. Either lose that much life or sacrifice that many permanents. And notice it says permanents, not non-land permanents.
Exactly. And that's a 6-drop, so that's if they decide that they're wanting to sacrifice 6 permanents rather than lose that 6 life, that's a lot of permanents that's leaving their side of the battlefield.
Well, if that prosh hits it for 21, guess what?
Oh, you're not wrong. That's half their battlefield if they don't want to lose their life, huh?
That's more than half most of the time. Now, one of the really big things about that is sacrificing permanents also gets around indestructible. So that Armandal that's on the field, if you block with that, it's going to cause that Armandal to have to be sacked, or they're going to have to lose that 9 life that Armandal's going to deal.
Yeah.
You're looking at a creature that even if it dies in the process, guess what? That lingering effect is still going to be there.
And even if it dies in the process, how much graveyard recursion do I have in this deck,
Yeah,
Ron?
quite a bit.
Quite
And
a
a lot
bit.
of it's return it to hand or return it to, and the rest of it is return it to battlefield.
But even with the returning it to the hand, I'm still getting that madness trigger off of that because of the 5-drop for madness.
Exactly. So you're getting more value and you're getting to draw a card off of madnessing it.
Yes, you are. So, guys, that is the last creature in this deck. We will see you at the review. Hey, guys, so that was Anje Falkenrath.
So, few things to look at in the deck. First thing we're going to be looking at is, of course, how does it function in the early game?
So this deck in the early game is going to take off pretty soon. Having your commander out, one of the first commanders on the board, really, and being able to really start with those madness triggers pretty early on.
That's pretty good. So one of the first things we're always concerned about in early game is, of course, extremely aggressive decks.
Which that is a little bit of weakness in this deck, but we do have that 40 life to kind of lean on, and eventually looking at turn 4, turn 5, if we can live through that early game aggro, get past turn 4 or 5, I'm dealing with enough hate that generally I can kind of handle that a little bit.
That's fantastic. So another thing is, so this deck usually takes off around turn 4 or 5.
That's exactly where it likes to take off because I have Anya out on turn 3 and being able to start discarding and drawing cards pretty early on.
That's great. Now, how does it deal with control?
Control, much like your cast deck of if you throw enough spells at it, the problem goes away.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same way of baiting those control cards out and being able to recast things because of the madness.
So primarily what you're looking to do is just burn out counter spells.
Exactly, because you throw enough things at a cheap enough cost, eventually you're still going to have mana and the control player is going to be at a loss.
That's a very good point. You can only counter as many things as you've got counters for.
Precisely.
So whenever we're looking at the mid game, what's this deck do primarily in the mid game?
This deck's primary, mid game is really dealing with problems across the board as they're in the form of creature removal, in the form of just spreading hate across the board, dealing that direct damage to the face,
mm-hmm.
and also trying to have the around the board of having them discard cards and stuff like that with Reach Sanitarium and Rick's Mahdi, the Dungeon Palace, for our lands, being able to kind of have people, having to discard those hands and discard their answers, as well as me getting those triggers off of discarding.
So I noticed you had a lot of targeted creature removal, but there wasn't any board control in there whatsoever. What's going on with that?
The biggest thing is I'm not wanting to get rid of my board.
Okay, so you're not looking. So wrath effects in your deck would be counterintuitive.
Yeah, because this deck isn't for decks swinging. I'm not trying to aggro and throw creatures attacking. I'm trying to mostly most of the creatures in here are for either sack outlets for those exploit triggers or something else, or building a wall up so that I'm a little bit protected for that hate that I'm trying to throw out.
Alrighty. Now, I saw a lot of X spells in this deck, and I love X spells. They're one of my personal favorites. Spells like Fireball, it's a classic. I love that spell. Shoot, even whenever I play D&D, one of the first spells I grab whenever I hit that ability, Fireball. It is just notoriously an overpowered concept in any game whatsoever.
Yes, it is. So, doors locked. What are you going to do, Fireball?
Exactly. So, whenever I see Fireball in decks, I always and I don't see its similar card, I get a little confused if you're running X drop cards. You know what its similar card is, right?
Well, I mean, obviously, like I have Avacyn's Judgment, which is the Madness X card.
Well, there's another one. It's called Banefire.
And remind us what that one does again.
For 1 red and X, deal X damage to target creature, player, or planeswalker. But if X is over 5, this spell can't be countered.
And that is a lot of value. Now, I think part of that is a good upgrade that you can make to this deck for very, very little guys. It doesn't add hardly any cost to the deck. And I believe that only deals with one person.
It does.
The reason I like, Fireball is, while yes, it runs the risk of being countered, it can hit multiple people.
And that's really good. Like I said, I love Fireball as a spell. I also just find Banefire to have that much value for whenever it's one-on-one. Usually that one-on-one comes down to you versus the control player.
Yes, it really does. You're not wrong.
So, also, I noticed probably one of my favorite black combos in there, but I only saw half of it.
And that is another upgrade to this deck. And half of that is Sanguine Bond. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is, guys, Exquisite Blood. I have the card, and I do normally run it in this deck, but I wanted to show you guys what this deck is at its cheapest state. Really we're bargain bin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not grab from the bottom of that bargain bin first before making these really $33 upgrades?
Yes. Now, Exquisite Blood is extremely expensive, but as a card, but with Exquisite Blood in the deck, how much would we have been looking at cost wise?
Cost wise, we've been looking at about $63, $64.
So even with Exquisite Blood, even though it makes up 50% or more of the deck cost, you're
Yes, it
still
does.
looking at a very viable combo, an infinite loop, in fact, for damage. But
And still staying within our budget, guys.
Yeah.
So if you have that extra $30 to spend, we're all about building decks on a budget, and with how cheap this deck is overall, that is definitely an upgrade you can make and still keep it bargain bin approved.
yes. Now another thing is that I notice you don't run tutors.
And there's not really a need for me to run tutors, because with the Madness, with Anja being able to discard, get that Madness trigger, and then
Mhm.
draw a card, and continuously do it with the discarding cards with Madness, untapping Anja, I don't really need tutors because I'm shuffling through my deck fast enough anyways.
Which is a very good point. Being able to just dig through the deck. I've just found that, and for my experience, tutors can get you your win cons a lot faster and make your deck a little bit more reliable. So if you are looking to upgrade the deck, I recommend things like Razakat's Right, Demonic Tutor, because this deck is so cheap. With Exquisite Blood and Demonic Tutor in the deck, you're still only looking at spending around $80 to $90 for the deck.
Which is outstanding. If you're telling me that you can run a 400 card deck with Exquisite Blood and Demonic Tutor in it, that's outstanding.
It is. So on levels of complexity, if we're looking at level from 1 to 5, where does this stand on 5 being the highest level of complexity to 1 being the lowest?
I'm gonna say, honestly, this is right at about a 2. It's really easy to run. It's really fun to run. It's a good deck for those beginning players to learn how to play and also learn those triggers.
So it's very simple to run. So simplicity in itself is actually a really good game winner.
Yes, it is.
So with all that being said, we've got good early game abilities. We've got good control of the board states in the mid game. We've got excellent access to it. How often does this deck win whenever you're playing it?
I'll be honest, guys, I've only won with this deck twice. However, one thing that I have done is I have controlled who has won, because I'm throwing enough hate at the people that are really dealing the biggest problems. So even though I might not win, I can still name the king.
Which a lot of folks, they forget, even in a competitive setting for playing Commander and in your casual play groups, it's not about winning all the time.
No, it's really not.
The big thing is you're getting together with a group of friends or a group of peers, and you're playing a game to have fun, unwind from work, and all of that good stuff.
Oh yeah, and this deck, if you're looking to have fun, this deck, you're going to have a lot of fun playing it, and playing against it, it's a lot of fun to watch. Now, it may not be fun to play against, but it's fun to watch at least.
So with all that being said, how much does the deck cost without those expensive upgrades?
And without lands in the deck, we're looking at $29.46 off of TCG Player, guys.
So we're looking at about a $30 deck, rounding up, without the basic lands in it, of course, because basic lands are really easy to get a hold of. Most people just have a shoebox full of them.
Yep.
So with all that being said, everything we're looking at all together, we can definitely say that this deck is
Bargain bin approved. So, guys, we will see you guys in the bargain bin. So, guys, always remember, if you guys like what you're seeing here today, don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you ring that bell to make sure we're all drawing cards.
And also, go visit us on Patreon. Donate for us. Anything helps. It helps us keep the lights on, helps us fund having more decks like this to be able to show you in the future. And we want to be able to show you content as well. Our top tier Patreons and even our mid tier Patreons are going to also have the ability to help to ask which decks we're going to be teching on this video or on these videos.
And we're going to give a shout out to, if somebody does ask us, hey, would you mind attacking this? I want to see what this commander would be in the bargain bin. We'll give you guys a shout out whenever you do that, just so, hey, we know that you're loving the content and we love helping you guys.
And for our very top tier Patreons, we're doing something special. If you want to see what's going on behind the camera, you're going to see every time we've actually screwed up majorly doing any of our filming is going to be on our top tier Patreon. So if you want to see those blooper reels, those gag reels, if you actually want to get to meet the cats that keep messing things up,
yep, those goddamn cats,
be able to go ahead and check us out on Patreon. And those, like I said, those top tier Patreon subscribers are going to be able to look at those. Now, mind you, those Patreon blooper reels are 18 and up.
Yes,
there is no way we could have made those without approved for young children.
Yep, because I believe PG-13. I think I just stole your one. I'm sorry, Bronson.
You did.
All right, so guys, once again, we love making this content for you, and as long as the love keeps coming our way, we can have a symbiotic relationship here. So, we'll see you guys next time in
The Bargain Bin.